This may be coming to the Port of Virginia. The budget on Governor Ralph Northam's desk includes $350 million to make the shipping channels deeper and wider.
The money would be used for a major dredging project. 13 News Now reporter Jacqueline Lee looked into what it could mean for Hampton Roads, and she's live in Norfolk tonight. Jacqueline.
Well, Janet, if Congress approves the project, the Norfolk Harbor and its channels will get wider and deeper. What that will do is allow larger cargo ships to come into our ports and, as a result, bring money into the region. The world of cargo is competitive, and the Port of Norfolk is trying to become the best.
We're looking to take this port to the deepest on the East Coast, so we want to be able that any vessel that is along the East Coast can pull into Norfolk and use this port services.
The Army Corps of Engineers is nearing the finish line of a 3-year study to deepen and widen the existing Norfolk Harbor and channels, including Thimble Shoal, Atlantic Ocean, and Newport News channels.
We've seen vessels come in here that have been larger and larger, and at this point some of those vessels may not be able to fully load because the channel's just not deep enough.
This project was spurred in part because of the recent Panama Canal expansion. It's cheaper to move more cargo on a single ship, so the ships became deeper and wider.
We have congestion with the naval vessels and the commercial vessels, so hopefully this will help that congestion. And wider channel always makes a safer passage.
The Army Corps' leadership says there's a lot at stake economically. For example, the Port of Baltimore is 50 feet deep. So is Norfolk's port. But by Norfolk wanting to deepen to 55 feet, it will have a competitive edge.
Lots of jobs in the region are dependent on the port and just the ability to move the materials to where it's needed and to get the materials out.
And that spokesperson with the Army Corps of Engineers told me that the benefits of the project are 5 times the actual cost of it. Now, earlier we mentioned that $350 million was allocated to this project in the state budget. The project still needs to be approved by Congress, but I spoke with a spokesperson from the Port of Virginia. He said he expects it to be approved and hopes that dredging will be completed by 2024. Live in Norfolk, Jacqueline Lee, 13 News Now.